Before we get started, I want to tell you about the 5-day free video course that starts on Wednesday, June 3rd. And this course is all about burnout recovery spectrum and understanding your metabolism. So when we're going through the burnout recovery, there are different phases on this journey, and I'm going to teach you exactly what to know about these phases, how to understand where you are on this journey, and what should be the next steps for you. So if you're interested in joining this program, you still have time. So you can join by signing up via the link in my Instagram bio, or you can check out the link in the description of this show, in the show notes, and I hope to see you there. Hi, my name is Kersten Kimura. Welcome to the Balanced Vibes podcast. If you're ready to quit the black and white approach to health and fitness, this is the podcast for you. There's no room for extremes and all or nothing thinking. We are here to talk about real health, sustainable diet and fitness, positive psychology, and spiritual growth, helping you become your own biggest superfan. Welcome to the show. Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode number 10 of the Balanced Vibes podcast. I am your host Kersten Kimura, and thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you. So today is going to be one of these episodes that I do not have a script for, and I'm here just to talk about a thing that has been sitting in my mind for quite some time now. And if you listen to the very first episode of this podcast, you know that I said that there might be some episodes where I'm just sitting down and telling you what's on my mind without a plan, without the bullet points, without a big takeaway for you. These are just going to be episodes where I feel like the strong need to just sit down and tell you what's on my mind. So today is exactly one of them. So I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go, but I'm just going to roll with it. Basically, what I wanted to talk about today is changing the direction and changing your mind, and how this has been something kind of like a big thing for me, changing my direction, changing my mind when it comes to my business. As you may know, I started talking about hypothalamic amenorrhea and recovery from overtraining about 3 years ago. So actually 2017, early 2017. So it's been over 3 years already. Now that I'm recording this, it's the last day of May in 2020. So it's been a long time. And I started talking about hypothalamic amenorrhea when I was still recovering myself. So I just realized, okay, you know what? Maybe I'm going to start writing about it. Maybe this will help someone. And actually, not even if it might help someone. At first, it was just to get my own thoughts out there and put it in a paper. I'm using air quotes here. I was just basically blogging about it and kind of like what I was discovering as I stopped training so much, and what I was discovering when I was looking back to my old habits and how much I had really overtrained and all the food restrictions that I had had. And so, in other words, it's been a long time. And I got my period back in May 3 years ago, and then I thought, you know what, I can start helping other people with it too, encourage them, to keep them accountable, tell them what to do if they don't know what to do, if they don't know if they actually have HA, I'm able to help them with it, to figure it out, and then I can help them to take the next right steps towards recovery. And this is how I really started putting out content that was mainly about HA recovery. So much content. If you go to my Pinterest or my YouTube or my blog, you find literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posts and videos on that topic. Okay, now fast forward 3 years from then, and I am changing my direction. And I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've been wanting to start talk about more in general, like healthy living and yes, burnout recovery, but also the life after, right? So I've been doing the HA stuff for so long, and I felt like there's a couple of reasons why I felt like it wasn't right for me anymore. But one of them was that I felt kind of stagnant. I felt like I'm always talking about the past, how there was this overtraining, how there was this undereating, how the weight was always a struggle, how I was always weighing myself. And while this always remains like a big part of my history, what I did, I'm ready to move on. And that doesn't mean that I cannot help that I cannot help people with hypothalamic amenorrhea anymore. I still do, and I have many clients who still have hypothalamic amenorrhea. But I want everybody to know that you have to be able to separate your journey from someone else's. So right now, I am 3 years post AJ recovery, right? So when you're looking at my posts on social media and see that I'm working out, you have to be able to realize that this is not for you. You have to realize that I am still in recovery and she's not anymore, right? Or if you see that my goal right now is to lose body fat, you got to realize that it's been 3 years since I have been eating very freely, everything I want. I've still been in this I don't know, maybe call it the recovery mode in a way. Which is all fine and cool, but I just, at one point I realized, okay, I want to change something. I'm ready for some physique change. So now if you see that and that triggers you, you have to be able to separate my journey from yours. These are two different things. One more reason why I started kind of changing this direction, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons was, as I mentioned also earlier in a couple of episodes, is that I started noticing that a lot of similar accounts were very much against regular exercise, were very much against like normal healthy habits, and we're always talking about how you should only accept yourself, and which is true, you should accept yourself, but how there's no other way of doing it. Like, in other words, it's wrong. It's a wrong thing if you have any goals after recovery, if you want to change your body, if you want to go back to healthier eating habits. And I didn't want to be one of these accounts. For example, one of my former clients told me that she was judged when she said that she genuinely does not like pizza and she would choose salad instead. So she was kind of like judged by one of these recovery accounts or recovery groups. And there are many examples of that where people say that, yeah, I really I don't like sugar, and then they get judged because of it, because they automatically get this label that you are body obsessed and you are pro dieting, and you don't have the actual real food freedom and you're still obsessed. And these things started feeling really wrong for me, especially when I found out that eating high sugar actually causes me to have very strong period pains. And when I figured that out, and I started decreasing my sugar intake significantly, I realized my period pains went away. So now when somebody said that if you avoid sugar, you're only doing it because you are obsessed, now that does not sound right to me. Also, just learning much more about gut health and how eating a certain way may negatively impact your gut health. For example, if we say that, sometimes you can see people saying, oh, that's okay if you don't eat any vegetables, as long as you have food freedom. I cannot agree with that. I have to say that I think it's very important to eat some vegetables, at least once a day. Eat a big salad, or have a side of vegetables with your dinner, or do something. It's not completely fine, in my opinion, to not to include vegetables, for example, in your diet. So these things started to sort of like bother me a little bit, and I didn't want to be seen as one of those people who is anti-regular exercise, who would say that vegetables don't matter, who would say that the way that you eat is not important. I've seen somebody who's saying that even just telling people to slow down when they're eating is disordered, because it's completely fine to eat really, really fast. And I disagree with that. I would say that it's very important that you chew your food properly, that you don't just inhale it, and that you do get all the nutrients and absorb the food so much better. It is important. I'm not kidding here. So in my opinion, it's very important. Coming back to where I am now, which is, like I said, 3 years after my hypothalamic amenorrhea recovery, I am at a place where I'm ready to work a little bit on my physique goals. And just somebody told me recently that, why do you want people to go back to disordered eating behaviors? And this is not my intention at all. This is the last thing I want for anyone, right? Having been through an eating disorder myself too, this is definitely not what I want anyone to have. But I'm able to see that and experienced that you can work on your physique goals, you can work on your performance goals, and do them in much different way than you did them in the past. So for example, for me in the past, you know the story, when I was 21 years old, I started running excessively, and I started doing that Weight Watchers diet that consisted of like very low calorie foods and almost no fat in my diet at all. And I lost a lot of weight. Yes, I lost a lot of weight, you know, probably about 30 pounds or so. My focus was only on the scale, right? I wanted that to drop. And it was done in a really unhealthy way. And now, when I'm doing it this time, I'm doing it completely differently. First of all, I'm not looking at the scale at all. Maybe you listened to the last podcast where I talked about it too. In the last episode, don't focus on the scale, and I really don't. And also, I'm not working out in order to just burn more calories and think, how can I burn more? How can I burn more? I'm not the person anymore who's not giving myself any rest anymore. I do rest a lot. I lie down, I rest, I read a book, I take some time off. I do have a hard time taking time off from work. I have to admit that. So my mind is often racing and going crazy fast. But when it comes to workouts, I have no problem taking rest days. I take 2-3 rest days every single week with no exceptions. And the body composition goal is way different this time. I'm taking the slower approach. I'm taking the reasonable approach. I never starve myself anymore. I'm making sure that I'm getting mostly good quality nutrients. Yeah, sometimes, you know, I'm not perfect either. I definitely have some days like too much, you know, protein bars. I have maybe like, I have those more often than I maybe could or should. I'm not perfect either, but I'm doing it in general. I'm doing it so much better than I did it in the past. One thing that was really hard actually for me was kind of like coming out of the closet and starting talking about the change, because I felt like I had become this sort of like recovery account that was expected to be a certain way. And because I had been talking about hypothalamic amenorrhea recovery for such a long time, and for about food freedom for such a long time, I felt like I don't know if I can actually now start showing my workouts, because what if it is triggering for someone? Or I don't know if I can show on my social media that I am choosing monk fruit sweetener over regular sugar, because I had to do it because of my period health. And in general, I do not think that excessive sugar is a good idea to begin with, right? So it was hard to start the change, and I didn't feel comfortable because there's still this people pleaser inside of me who wants to make everybody feel comfortable. And I thought that, okay, I've been showing up one way for a very long period of time, and this is what my followers expect of me. But then on the other hand, it started to feel like more and more wrong and more misaligned. So in other words, if I was working out and I was scared to show it to other people, I felt like this is not right, because when I'm telling them that I'm not working out, when I'm hiding that from them, this is inauthentic to me. Should I really keep hiding it, or is it better that I just tell them, hey, this is what I do? And yes, sometimes our workouts are more intense. And yes, I do lift weights. And yes, I do work out 4 or 5 days a week, even though you, as a listener or a follower, may be in age of recovery right now where you are not doing any of those things. So I was thinking, is it going to be too triggering? Is it going to be too much? But like I said, I didn't want to hide it anymore, because that wasn't authentic anymore. That wasn't the real me anymore. And then the same thing with sugar. For example, when I was posting something, like I was baking something and I showed that I'm using the monk fruit sweetener and the almond flour, because at the time I also had to be low or no gluten, because my acupuncturist wanted to see if my thyroid responds to that better. So I was baking something, and then I was like, should I show it? Should I not? Am I going to be judged because I'm not using real sugar? And sure enough, when I decided to post it, I did get judged for it. And people were like, why are you doing this? This is not real food freedom. And even when I explain why I'm doing this, they're still like, I'm not too sure. And so it was a little bit hard to sort of come out of the closet. I don't know how else to say it. But now I realize that you have to do what feels right to you. And also that change is normal. You can go through different phases in your life. And I think honestly, if you always stay the same, maybe there is a problem. If you never change, and if you're not able to see outside of your own little comfort zone, that's a problem there. And I know that for me, like staying in the same bubble all the time, talking about how bad the society is for making women do certain things, and how unfair it is, it just started becoming really like restrictive, and I felt like I was like stuck. Because also, don't we have our own freedom and our own choices to make? Like, we have our freedom to choose what we want to do and what we don't want to do. And I know it's really hard to see when you are in recovery yourself. You're like, but everybody's telling me I have to be smaller. But actually, you don't have to listen to it. Just try to even just consider it for a second. Do I have to listen to it? If my health is bad because of doing all this that I've been sort of like told to do, if my health is bad, do I still have to continue listening to this? And it is the fact that the dieting mindset is not going to go anywhere. The like beat yourself up in the gym mindset is not going to go anywhere. We have to make our own choices and take responsibility and decide whether or not we want to follow this advice, or we can do better. So part of why I've also decided to kind of talk about this change that I'm going through is also encouraging you to become more responsible, right? So that you don't take everyone's advice all over the internet, because there's so many, right? So many different things. But figure out what works for you and really approach it from the perspective like, does this work for me? And this is how you actually become really more empowered and aligned with your choices. And also kind of related to that is that what started for me personally sounds a little bit restrictive was this very negative mindset, or this like this it's hard to find the right word for me right now, but this mindset where we're talking about only how terrible the society is, and just like blaming and judging, instead of saying that, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for what I have done in the past. Now I'm going to figure out how to heal myself. The help is there, right? I'm here to help you. The help is there. I can choose how I want to feel. So I realized that when I kept like being in the same bubble of like this recovery phase forever and ever and talk about the same old things over and over, I kind of like the negativity kept like spinning in my head, and I was always stuck in there, and I almost didn't want to take responsibility for my own health. So I realized that that has to change as well. And finally, exercise. Yes, I do exercise much more. And of course, in hypothalamic amenorrhea recovery, I wasn't exercising at all. But exercise has always been my thing. And now, if I don't talk about it at all, and I'm going to talk about it more in the future for sure, but I realized if I don't talk about it at all, I'm like pushing down this one thing that I really care about, right? Regular exercise is very important to me. I do work as a personal trainer in person too. I work in two different gyms. One is like a more like traditional gym, and the other one is focused on rehab. I see a lot of people with different goals. Some of them are in pain and have to get out of pain. Some of them have like mobility issues, bad mobility issues. Other people just want to become like fitter and have more energized. And this is such a big part of my life, and this is what I do daily with other people, with my clients, and for myself too. So now trying to like hide it or denying the benefits of regular exercise just because I once overtrained, I feel like it's doing a disservice and is sending people the wrong message. So that's why I'm always going to keep this as an important part of what I'm doing, and I'm not going to hide that anymore. I want you to know that it's okay to go through different phases in your life and change when the change is necessary. So if you've been doing something for a long time and you feel like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to be perceived if I change that, ask yourself, how is it going to make you feel if you remain the same? Because I know that for me, it started feeling really restrictive. It started feeling like a lot of struggle. I was feeling a little bit like trapped when I kept talking about the same things over and over again. I had to break free from that and really talk about things that truly that were different. And I wanted people to understand why this was happening, and maybe it's appropriate for you too. So if you too maybe feel like, oh, I haven't been able to change anything because I'm so scared, what are they going to think if I say this and that? Always ask yourself, what is more how do I feel more aligned, and what is the better thing for me to do? And I do think that if you are aligned with yourself, the right people will also find you, especially if you are an entrepreneur and trying to get your word out there, and find people who resonate with that. Okay, this is it from me today. No tips or tools for you today. This is more just like a rant from me to tell you why I have just decided to change. And I always want you to remember that no matter where you are on your path, stay on your path. If you don't like what I am doing or somebody else is doing on the internet, then you can always unfollow, and maybe you come back later, maybe you don't. I've shared that earlier on my Instagram too, that I actually once unfollowed my own business coach because I wasn't mentally there. I wasn't mentally in a place where I could see her post and feel comfortable with them, because she's a very, very, very lean, very fit, very muscular looking woman, and in my eyes looks so fit. And when I was going through all my recovery, I found too that I cannot follow her because it was too much. And now I have no problem following her. I love every single post she posts, and this is just because I've grown as a person, and I went from one phase to another phase, and now I'm ready to take this information without any problems at all. So you always have the freedom to unfollow anyone, come back later or don't come back, do whatever feels better for you. Thanks so much for listening to the Balanced Vibes podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe and also leave a 5-star review on iTunes. For more about me, check out my website urbanjane.co. Yes, that's CO and not com. And connect with me on Instagram, where my username is Kersten Kimura. That's KerstenKimura. Until next time.